2 weeks down, and the bills have dropped, and the votes are beginning to come in. Welcome to the second weekly wrap-up of all the justice reform action in Virginia's General Assembly. My name is David Smith, and I'm here to get you caught up to speed with everything you missed last week while you were living your life and doing your work. I'm now tracking even more bills, 75 in total. From the good, finally putting hard limits on the number of days a person can be kept in solitary confinement against their wishes. The bad, creating new felonies so prosecutors can stack even more charges. And the ugly, carve out so not every justice-impacted person can receive the benefits of a bill. Now, I'm not going to try to cover all the bills. We'll look at some of the bills that have had their first votes in committee or subcommittee, look at the problem of carve-outs, but we're going to start with some big news from federal court. In case you missed it, the ACLU of Virginia won the voting rights case they filed. Basically, Virginia, like all former Confederate states, in order to rejoin the Union, had to agree they would not, let me say that again, would not create new felonies to disenfranchise folks. In other words, the legislatures couldn't pass laws to make new felonies and then use these new convictions as a way of suppressing the vote. The only felonies that could cause someone to lose the right to vote were the ones that were already on the books. These common law felonies included murder, manslaughter, rape, burglary, robbery, arson, larceny, and mayhem. Okay, that is a lot there. But along the way, Virginia changed her constitution, permanently banning folks with any felonies from voting. And now the only way you can get your rights restored is by the governor. That is until this case. The judge declared that practice unconstitutional. So what happens next? I reached out to an attorney friend of mine at the ACLU of Virginia, and they said nothing changes yet. See, Virginia can still appeal the case. Hopefully the Spanberger administration won't. Assuming it stands, the ACLU of Virginia will be putting out information on what impacted folks have to do. And remember, this only applies to new felonies, so like drug convictions. Some folks convicted of those old school common law felonies would still have to go through the current process to get their voting rights restored. But that will change for everybody if the constitutional amendment passes in November. Even with this win in court, November is still important, so no one gets left behind. All right, enough with the case. Let's get on to the bills. First up, solitary confinement. There are two bills this year, HB 35 dealing with solitary confinement in prisons and HB 91 dealing with it at Bon Air, which is our juvenile prison here in Virginia. HB 91, the Bon Air juvenile prison one, it passed unanimously. Now, it was not minimizing in cell or in room time, but maximizing the out of cell time. That's the tack they are taking there. And this is more of a study. It's not really mandating anything, but it is a good first step. Years ago, I was working with some stuff on Bon Air, and they claimed they didn't have anything like this until we actually got into the prison, into the actual Bon Air facility, and then saw what was going on. Now, HB 35, this is a bill I've personally been invested in since 2018, let's say 2017. And we've passed a few pieces along the way. This year, we are actually putting hard limits on the number of days someone can spend in solitary confinement. It passed out on a party line vote. Still no opposition from DOC, but I think DOC is still kind of figuring out their steps with the new administration coming into play, what they're going to support, what they're going to oppose. Another bill is a stick for jails if they don't report deaths. So there's a big issue in Virginia with deaths in local and regional jails. We even have a person dedicated to reviewing any death that happens in a local or regional jail because it's gotten so bad. One of the problems now is that the jails aren't even reporting the deaths that are happening in a timely fashion. So this bill, HB 80, which passed out on a party line vote, would restrict funding if a jail does not report deaths in a timely manner. All right, and the next bill we want to talk about is a study bill. So study bills don't actually put anything into law, but they direct a group of people to study the issue at hand and then provide a report back to the General Assembly by a certain point. So this one is for postpartum women in local and regional jails. Basically, what is the best way that local and regional jails can support women and their newborn children during this postpartum time period? HB 860 passed unanimously out of committee, but it's a long study. It doesn't have to be done until December 1st of 2028. So the very earliest we would see any legislation from this study would be in 2029. So just keep that in mind here with this bill. All right, next up is HB 149, SB 136. This is Ren Williams and Christy New Craig's Probation Reform bill. And this is leaving huge carve-outs that Youngkin put in last year. So a little bit of background on this bill. And people seem to love this bill, but I'm not so excited about it. Because last year, the Reform Alliance bill was carried by Ren Williams and Christy New Craig, who are carrying it this year, without any carve-outs, only to have Governor Youngkin, who was a lame duck governor at that point, send it back to the legislature with carve-outs and a reenactment clause. Okay, what does a reenactment clause mean? That means that the bill would have to pass again, be reenacted, in the 2026 session to actually take effect. Now, from what I've heard, there was debate at Reform Alliance about what to do. Do you get the partial win in 2025 with these carve-outs, which are just horrible? Or do you wait for a more favorable political landscape in 2026? Remember, even a year ago, pretty much everyone, including the Republicans, knew Spanberger would be the governor and the Democrats would have a better House election. But instead of letting it die in 25, Reform Alliance said, take the amendments, and then they reintroduced Youngkin's bill, not the original bill, but Youngkin's bill from last year, this year. So now what we're watching is a bill that was partially written by Youngkin and Mayeris, two people who are not friends to the justice movement and are no longer in elected office, make its way through the General Assembly with all the carve-outs. If you haven't been able to figure out yet, I'm not a fan of carve-outs. But you might be asking, okay, David, what is a carve-out? This is when you specifically exclude certain people based on historical offenses. It's the exact same thing that happened with the expungement bill last year. The expungement bill needed some technical amendments for implementation, but the Republican Attorney General Mayeris insisted on carving out thousands of people who are eligible under the existing law. So they basically just carved them out. They said, if you have any one of these offenses, you are not going to be eligible for this. Now, you may be saying, David, this is just how you get things started. They come back for folks that are carved out. And I'll reply, show me where. You see, this isn't a pilot program where only certain populations listed are eligible. It's a carve-out where certain populations are explicitly excluded. Pilot programs are made to be expanded. Carve-outs stay in place until we can muster the political will to fix it, which, unfortunately, rarely happens. Now, I would love to be proved wrong. If you can, drop a comment and show me a justice bill in Virginia that had carve-outs removed, and I will give you a big shout out next week. All right, with that rant, and yes, that is me ranting right there. With that rant on carve-outs all wrapped up, we're going to be wrapping things up for this week. Come back next week to see more of what happened for Virginia justice reform at the GA and to see if anyone, please someone, show me where carve-outs were removed. Oh, hey, and if you're not already signed up for my weekly Virginia Justice News Summary email that comes out every Sunday morning and has all the justice reform related news that was in the press in Virginia last week, follow the link in the description below to get signed up today. I'll see you all next week.